Episode 300 of Dynamite. There's been some good, there's been some bad, but I think that there's not a lot of people that necessarily thought that we would get to this point, right? 300 episodes, no matter how you squeeze it, I feel as if it's a big accomplishment, and especially for any wrestling promotion outside of WWE to be able to accomplish that feat and do it on a major network such as TNT and TBS. I think it's something that deserves a round of applause, right? But we are 10 days away from AEW's biggest show of the year, All In. It's going to be a hectic weekend from a content creator's perspective. As you guys all know, there is the Great American Bash. There is All In. There's Saturday night's main event that night, and then there is Evolution 2 the following day. So it's going to be a very, very busy weekend here on the Fast Count, and you guys will get a lot of different content from a lot of different varieties that following weekend. But we open up this show, right? And this was a very hot crowd throughout the show. And we are steadily getting closer and closer to All In. So you know that the temperature is starting to rise when it comes to certain storylines, right? We got things that are involving the Young Bucks, Will Ospreay. We got Kenny Omega and Okada, which everybody knows is going to be a slapper. And we also have the AEW World Championship on the line between Hangman Page and Jon Moxley. It really feels as if we are on the cusp of getting that title away from Jon Moxley and being able to see the title on a weekly basis, which it feels as if we haven't seen the title in forever. You got to think about this too. There's probably somebody, I know people are going to want to debate whether it's a lot or if it's a little bit, but there's got to be somebody that has just started watching AEW when it started simulcasting on Max, right? They have no idea what this championship looks like due to the fact that they have this title in a briefcase, right? But we start off the show. Hangman Adam Page is cutting this promo, obviously trying to hype up the match that he has against Jon Moxley in what is supposedly going to be the main event of All In, right? He comes out and he reminisces about how he made this promise to the audience, right? He promised us that going into All In, he's going to defeat Jon Moxley. He is going to relieve him of that championship, and he is going to free the title and the company away from the Death Riders. But he wants to pick up the stakes, right? He doesn't just want a regular match, right? This is somebody who has going up against Jon Moxley, who has his past, somebody who's been going through, hell and back the last 2 years, and somebody who's really determined on taking this title away from the Mox and the Death Riders and really pursuing AEW and pushing them into the future, right? So he challenges Jon Moxley to a Texas death match, right? Because he knows that during this match, he's going to get the Death Riders thrown at him. He knows he's going to get the Elite thrown at him. So we might as well just not even bullshit with each other and be realistic and make this a Texas death match, right? So he calls out Jon Moxley to make this thing official. Jon Moxley comes out. He says, you know what, Hangman, you're pushing all your chips, in the middle of the table, right? This is what you want to do. No, this isn't what you want to do, right? You're doing this because you know that you can't win at All In. You can't handle the pressure of being the AEW champion. You were able to win the Owen because that's not the cusp. That's not the tippy top, right? That's not where everybody wants to be. And it takes a lot of pressure and a lot of attention to be the AEW World Champion. And that's not something that Hangman can handle, right? The main thing that people I feel like are going to take away from this promo that Jon Moxley was discussing was when he hit the line, he was like, but there's a lot of people that come out and call themselves the best in the world. He's like, that's basic bitch shit. As we all know, there's one man who had a very eventful weekend in Saudi Arabia last weekend who likes to call himself the best in the world, right? It feels as if that CM Punk and that AEW, shots, whether it's from his side or their side, is going to be something that is going to continue throughout the rest of his career, right? They're kind of intertwined based off of what went down at all Brawl Out, right? So we see the Death Riders come out. They jump Hangman Page. Hangman Page comes out and he says, is that all you got? Because he was jumped not only by Mox, he was jumped by Wheeler Yuta. He was jumped by Claudio Castagnoli. He was slapped multiple times from Marina. It looked as if he was going to get his hands on Marina, but Wheeler Yuta, like a bear trap, grabbed on his ankle, and they were able to take advantage of him and really ante up the numbers game, right? So we see Mox and Claudio make their way out, and then you see Hangman call him out. He says, is that all you got? and you see them walking towards the ring, but we see Samoa Joe, because this whole time it looked as if Hangman had zero friends. We see Samoa Joe out there to even up the odds, and you see Marina back into the ring with Hangman. It says, you know what, Mox? If you think I can't handle the pressure, if you think I can't go all the way with this, watch this. And he hits a buckshot lariat on Marina. They end the segment, right? Very well done. Very well done. I feel as if Hangman's the right guy at the right time to be able to take the title off of Mox. I know that going into this storyline, I really felt as if the guy who was going to do it was going to be Darby Allin, but with him climbing on Mount Everest, there was no even guarantee that he was going to make it off the mountain. So you really can't sit there and count him into what was going to go down, especially with the world title. I do believe that we're going to see a Darby Allin appearance in the main event of All In to help even the odds. And I feel as if we're going to see Hangman win the title. But that's just what I'm thinking at the moment. Who knows? There's 10 days away from the event. Between now and then, I could change my mind, right? So we get to the first match of the show. We get the appearance of Timeless Toni Storm sitting on the commentary desk, but she wasn't sitting on the commentary desk. She was sitting next to the desk, and they had a similar setup to where they had Mercedes a few weeks ago, where they had the dinner table with the steak and all of that. Throughout the whole night, they were doing a lot of cross promotion for the new Superman movie, which does look pretty good. In my opinion, I'm very excited for that. I think I might go see that movie Friday or immediately. Yeah, I'll probably go see it Friday, because with all the wrestling content that's going to go down on Saturday and Sunday, I'm not going to have enough time to see it on the weekend. So I'll probably go check out that Superman movie on the following Friday. Who knows? If it's good, I'll let you guys know. But we get Mercedes one-on-one with Mina, right? And this isn't the first time we've seen this match. We've seen them, link up a few times. But it was a very good match. Every single match that they've been able to put together, I think it's always been serviceable to very good, right? And going into this, I thought maybe there was a good possibility, not a good possibility. I thought there was a possibility that we might be able to see a title change. But at the end of the day, Mercedes 6 belts, was able to reclaim the victory, retain the title. Going into All In, it really feels as if with all these different mounting W's that Mercedes is collecting, it feels stronger and stronger to me that we're going to see Toni Storm retain, right? Because Mercedes has been booked so strong for so long, ever since she's left WWE, and she made her, she made and did her time in Japan. In AEW, she's been undefeated as well. It feels as if the momentum is on the side of we're going to see a Toni Storm retention of the championship. And Mina, she did her thing. I know that the crowd was very into it. The crowd was pretty much into everything all night, right? Because the way that the venues was set up, very small, very intimate. I think that that's the best way that AEW is able to go when it comes to booking their shows. And it felt as if that Mercedes got a lot of heat. She was able to progress the storyline heading into All In against Toni Storm. At the end, Mercedes retained with a roll-up. We see Mina get cheap shotted by Mercedes at the end of the match. We see Toni try to make the save. For Toni's good deed, she eats a title belt hit to the back of the head. Now, this whole time that Toni was on commentary, she spoke 0 words. We didn't hear a peep out of Toni, and we're going into that match with Mercedes having all the momentum. Next, we get this vignette of the Young Bucks, right? They show off that they're back, and you see the Bucks sitting there saying, I got this gift. Let's check this thing out. And it's a limousine that has multiple different pictures of the Bucks throughout it. All these different founding father images. As we all know, they are the founding fathers of AEW. They've spoken upon it multiple different times. And then they open up the back of the limousine. It has all of these boxes worth of J's. We all know the Bucks when it comes to the shoes. The Bucks and Roman Reigns. And you could throw in Swerve as an honorable mention due to his connection with Reeboks. When it comes to the kicks, they're always on point, right? They go off showing to the fact that they're in Ontario, California, very much so close to their hometown of Rancho Cucamonga. I always thought that was a fake place when I heard that. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show Workaholics. I know that they took their show is based out of Rancho Cucamonga. I always thought that was just some made up shit from a TV show, but it's real. And they go on to show where they went to school. And they have this big, kind of statue of where they went to school. And it's like this bear wrapped around a pole, right? And then you see, later on, they're talking about, they show off their childhood home and they're in the limo and they're eating In-N-Out burger and they're just flaunting their wealth. And they're looking at their childhood home and says, you know what? This looked a lot bigger once we were growing up, right? And then you see them cut back to the arena, and Taz is having himself a commission, like, what's up with that school? Why do they have that weird bear and shit? Like, what's up with the school district in California? What do they got going on? It's funnier how he explained it than the way that I'm explaining it, but that is kind of strange, right? Next, we get back into the action. We have a fatal four-way between MJF, AR Fox, Bowen, and Brody King. As we all know, everybody is trying to qualify for this Casino Gauntlet Battle Royal. This is to guarantee you for the number 2 spot, because as you guys know, it can end at any moment. We're starting it off with Mark Briscoe. He's the number 1 entrance in the match. So in this match, it's better to be out there early than it is to be out there later, right? Because like I said, it could end at any point, right? And this whole match was pretty much the Brody King show. Brody was getting a hero's welcome in California, and everybody was really into every single thing that he was able to do tonight. Obviously, he's the biggest guy in the ring, so he was able to just basically throw these guys around like a rag doll, right? MJF was the guy who everybody was going at earlier in the match, but before they could even get their hands on him, he was behind the announcer desk, and he kind of had Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin and MVP kind of as if there were like this fortress, this wall that were protecting them and MJF, so they couldn't get to him. So Brody saw that and he's like, you know what? Screw it. Let me just kick these other 2 guys' ass. And he was just having his way with Bowens and AR Fox. We got MJF going in and out of the action throughout the match. The story that they were trying to tell was MJF is this guy who's very guarded basically by the Hurt Syndicate. And he was going in and out. But there came a point where Brody King was able to get his hands on MJF. And he did what he does best, and that's kick some ass, right? But at the end of the match, we saw AR Fox get hit in the salt of the earth. He tapped out. MJF is the number 2 man in the Casino Battle Royal. We see Mark Briscoe come out, and he's wearing this shirt that says MJF has a little pickle, which I'm sure that you can buy on AEWshop.com, which if you're a grown man walking around wearing that in public, I have some questions for you. And I think you might not be somebody who might be right in the head. All right. But you see Mark Briscoe come out and he says, MJF, he congratulates him on winning the match. And he says, you basically, with the fact that you are now the number 2 man in this battle royal, you basically just ensured yourself that you are going to be getting an ass kicking. And then he sits there and he brings up the fact that MJF called him a blue collar bitch last week. He says, blue collar is something that I wear as like a badge of honor. He said, but that bitch part is what is going to ensure that you get an ass whooping come all in. And then he goes on to propose the fact that he wants to have a one-on-one talk with MJF. No Hurt Syndicate, just them one-on-one. We're going to see Briscoe and MJF having a promo battle heading into the Casino Gauntlet at All In, right? And it's been reported that MJF personally asked to work with Mark Briscoe, which I think that when you kind of have a guy come out and personally ask to work with somebody else, that's when the magic is at its most, because it's something that both of them want to do, right? So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to that match. MJF has had a very interesting path when it comes to all these all-ins, right? He main evented the first one. He had a very high-profile one match with Will Ospreay last year. And this year, he's in the Casino Gauntlet. So I keep screwing up and saying the Casino Battle Royal because it's just like Gauntlet, Battle Royal. It sounds as if it's the same thing, but obviously it's not, right? But hey. Next, we get to the Young Bucks and Takeshita versus Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bandito. This is one of those heroes versus villains match that they're promoting for this crossover promotion that they're doing with the Superman movie. Like I said, the movie looks very good. I'm one of those rare, this is pretty off topic, right? but I'm one of those rare people who actually enjoy Batman versus Superman, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And the fact that we're getting this movie rebooted, the Superman movie rebooted so quickly, it's just a shame, right? Because on the surface, the Zack Snyder movies should have freaking worked, right? But it was just a disaster for most people. I wish that we were able to get a conclusion to those films, but hey, that's for another topic, right? This isn't a movie channel; it's a wrestling channel, but we can talk movies sometimes. But Takeshita and the Young Bucks, right? They're kind of in this alliance right now, this temporary alliance, due to the fact that Okada is with the Don Callis family, heading into his match against Kenny Omega, right? So these guys are aligned just temporarily at the moment, but the Bucks were over, obviously, due to the fact that the show was in California. Takeshita, he is somebody who is going to be going one-on-one with Bandito at Final Battle for the ROH Championship. That should be a banger of a match. I'm looking forward to that. And if they had Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, two guys who can obviously go at any time. It was a pretty compelling back and forth match. People were very into it because all this connections, due to the fact that, PWG as well, Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly, two guys who have made their name very much so in that corporation. So for them to do that in California, they were going to get themselves a good ovation, right? But at the end, we see Takeshita and the Young Bucks hit an EVP trigger, a triple EVP trigger on Kyle O'Reilly. Then we see Takeshita hit him with a Raging Fire. 1, 2, 3. The villains win this match. It looked as if they were going to give Kyle O'Reilly a case of the beats, but we see Swerve and Will Ospreay come out and make the save. Now, this segment that I'm about to discuss between Will Ospreay and the Young Bucks was very necessary. And it was one of those things that addressed all of the criticism that multiple people were making when they made that challenge to the Young Bucks last week about having that tag team match at All In where the Young Bucks would put up their EVP status, right? They cleared up a lot of different things. They see Swerve take the mic and he says, I asked you guys a question last week. I didn't get an answer. It's been 7 days. What's up, basically, right? And then he starts clarifying and saying, what? We asked you to put your EVP status up up for grabs. But when we did that, we weren't making it as if or saying it as if we win, we become EVPs. Like, nope, I don't trust Will with that type of power. We want to give the EVP ship to the true EVPs, and that is the people. And they asked the Bucks, what do you say? And the Bucks say no. And it's like, why would we sit there and put up our EVP ships when we have nothing to gain? And that was a very good statement that clarified a lot of things. And you see Will Ospreay tell Swerve Strickland's like, what? Trust me, right? He's like, we got something that is going to be interesting for you guys, right? And we're going to put up that if we lose at All In, me and Swerve, we cannot challenge for the AEW Championship for a whole year. You see Sir Strickland not like that. You see them go back and forth. You see Swerve not very comfortable with that. And then you see the Bucks say, you know what? We'll take you up on that offer, but we need both of you guys to agree to it. Swerve, what do you say? And Swerve hesitantly agrees to it. So we now have stakes for that match where both teams have something up for grabs, where we have the Bucks putting up their EVP ship, and then we have Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland putting up them not being able to challenge for the AEW Championship for a whole year. Now, I feel as if the Bucks are going to lose because Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland are foundational pieces as to what AEW is doing going forward. And for them not to be able to be involved in any championship matches for a whole year would be disastrous. Almost as disastrous when Cody Rhodes made it to where he couldn't challenge for the AEW Championship ever, right? Who would have fucking thought that was a smart idea? But selfless, but dumb at that time, right? I feel like doing that really boxed Cody in AEW, right? Now, it feels as if, obviously everything has worked out, for the best, but damn, what could have been? We have this match spin off of that. We have Swerve and Will Ospreay versus Mortos and Juristico. I always screw up his name. Juristico. All right. And then, obviously, you know that Swerve and Will were going to win this match. Good spot for Mortos, right? Ever since it's been publicly outed that him and Mercedes are an item, this guy's been on the show every single week, and it's a pretty high-profile spots. Good for him, right? Good for freaking him. But Will and Swerve, they pick up the W. You see them hit their finishers in this interesting combination, and you see Will hit the Styles Clash for the win. The good guys win. And next, we go into the main event. The main event of the show. The main event of AEW 300. Ibushi versus Okada, right? Obviously, these are two guys who have a lot of history. These are two guys who had multiple different matches throughout their history in Japan. Guys who have been able to deliver high-quality matches together. And coming off of this long, layoff for Ibushi, where he suffered all these different injuries, some self-inflicted, it was good to see him to be able to have a high-quality one-on-one match in a main event show against Okada, right? For a guy who these Japanese guys, when it comes to their in-ring work, they're very proud. They've had this reputation of wanting to work through these different injuries, all these different things that is accustomed in their traditional culture. And the fact that they were able to get this opportunity to deliver in a good spot was nice to see, right? And on a signature show for AEW 300, obviously, one of the things coming in was, would Ibushi be able to hang with Okada with such a long layoff? And I think that he passed his test, right? Now, I don't think that we're ever going to get the Ibushi of 4 or 5 years ago where he was just joked up and he looked as if he was an action figure. But for what we got tonight, I think that he was able to deliver in a high-pressure situation against Okada where they're trying to move this story forward, heading into All In for his match against Kenny Omega. I thought that they were able to deliver, right? Okada was able to pick up the W, which isn't a shock because you want him and Omega to look as strong as possible heading into their match. You had Rocky Romero come into the ring after he was able to defeat Ibushi and Don Callis, and it looked as if they were going to get a massive case of the beats laid upon Ibushi. But we hear battle cry Kenny Omega. He comes out, he makes the save with a chair. The ring scatters. Then we see when Kenny Omega has his back turned, we see Trent Beretta come into the ring. It looked as if he had kind of like this police baton type of thing in his hand. But Ibushi was able to get it out of his hand. And you see them lay Trent out. And we end the show with Kenny Omega and Ibushi standing tall, heading into All In. I'm excited for that match so much. So excited for that match, right? I know a lot of people, they try to take away the hype away from it, saying, well, they've wrestled like 4 or 5 times before. How is this a dream match when it's happened so many times? Guys, this is happening on American soil. It's happening on a stage where a lot more people are going to be able to see it. We're having it in front of 20,000 people. It is freaking a dream match. We're finally seeing this because this is something that we probably thought we'd never see again, right? And I'm excited. I think the card heading into All In is pretty solid, Kenny versus Okada, Texas Death Match 2. We've already seen Moxley and Hangman have a Texas Death Match at Revolution a few years back, which was very violent. And the only thing for me is, like, when they announce these Texas Death Matches, right, the luster has kind of been taken away from it for me. Because, look, AEW is obviously the alternative to WWE, right? And I feel like they're very needed in this space because I like to compare it to movies, right? Pick whoever you think is the greatest director or your favorite director, whether it's Martin Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, fucking Steven Spielberg, right? Think about, like, if every single movie that came out of Hollywood was directed by one of those guys. You're just getting the same vision, the same everything, right? You need multiple different visions to create art. And I think that the fact that, I'm kind of ranting, but I think the fact that we get these type of Texas death matches or no DQs so freaking often from AEW that it's like when they announce, oh, the main event of the biggest show of the year is going to be a Texas death match, it's like, shit. It's like, cool, another one? It's like, okay, I'm sure it's going to be fun, but it's like something like that, you should be like, holy shit. But like we get it so often that it's just like, okay, this is going to be cool. I expect I expect violence, but at the same time, they do it so often. It's just like, how are you going to be able to shock me, right? Unless they just literally decapitate somebody in the middle of the freaking ring. I don't think that there's more that they can do violence wise. But this is a pretty solid show. Like I said, we're getting closer to All In. All systems a go. That everybody is heading towards that show. Everybody feels as if they're doing their best to get hyped for this event, and I feel like heading into the show, we're probably going to get 20,000. It looks as if we're at 1850 at the moment, but 20,000 should be a go when it comes to showtime. I'm excited, guys. Like I said, there'll be plenty of coverage of All In and all the other events that will be taking place next weekend. So be on the lookout for that, guys. I'm out of here. I'm Kevin Zwicker. This was your Fast Count AEW Dynamite Post Show. I'm out.